Hello everybody, I'm Antonia and this is Noel and we are from Boxtail Soup Theatre Company. And if you are enjoying these vlogs, please do give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel. That is all hugely helpful to us. And if you're doing that, then thank you very, very much. And as Noel said last week, we are also on other social media. You can find us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook and on TikTok. So do follow us on
Just getting started on TikTok.
TikTok, I don't understand TikTok.
Any advice welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we thought we would talk about some of the more unusual skills, I suppose, that we have learned, given that we are a theatre company. It's sort of fairly obvious, I suppose, and I would hope, that over the years we've developed our skills in puppet making, in making shows generally, in writing, in creating sets, costumes, all that sort of thing. But there are some more, I suppose, unusual left field skills that we have learned along the way. We've talked about this briefly before. I think we did a vlog a little while ago about the poster, making the poster. I think we did it specifically about making the Gulliver poster and the sort of the software that you use for that and how you've learned over the years and how your skills have been honed and refined. And then we also, in the lockdown year, we made some audio dramas, and so we had to learn how to make those, how to edit sound. And it was, I mean, we're very basic. We're not, it's not.
No, but
not pros, but.
No, sure.
But nonetheless, we
learned a lot more than we knew to begin with.
And then there's the business skills that we've learned, which again I think we touched on in another vlog. Today we wanted to talk more specifically, because we're working on this Gulliver Exploded project at the moment. We wanted to talk more specifically about the video editing skill that we've learned. I say we, I don't really know anything. It's really Noel who has learned how to do this, and you've been doing it for a little while, haven't you? Because you've been doing the vlogs and the trailers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it
this
really
is the biggest one.
Yeah, this is the biggest one by far, and it really has been, like all of it, it's been a gradual process. You know, at the very beginning of the company, we knew that we needed a poster, so we had to figure out how to make a basic poster, and then in that sense you kind of iterate on that year on year and learn a little bit more and learn a new trick and a new bit of software and gradually get better and better at it. And from the very beginning, when we made a trailer for Northanger Abbey, I can't actually remember what we used to do that, but that was kind of the beginning of learning more about video editing and more about how to put that kind of thing together. And again, it's been an iterative process, like gradually over the years I've learned.
Although I feel like
more and more.
You have a sort of skill in itself that you seem to really enjoy learning about things like that. Like when Noel started to use the Affinity software for the poster editing, he got all the manuals for it and kind of read them all through, and then learning to use Davinci Resolve, which is the video editing software that we're using. I was perfectly happy to sit there for a while and look at all the stuff and then go on a YouTube video and Google something or go on Reddit and find out what everybody's doing with it, and you seem to enjoy.
Well, like I was saying before, I think like in some other walks of life it would be a massive character flaw to have this kind of obsessive tunnel vision behaviour and complete kind of, I don't know, a dogmatic obsession with something. But yes, if something catches my interest like that, then I'm more than happy to invest that time and
forget to eat your breakfast.
Forget to eat my breakfast.
Or your lunch. Or whatever
meals.
Yeah,
and kind of get very focused on figuring that stuff out.
Because I certainly, for me, I look at even the screen that comes up when you open up a project in DaVinci, and there's a lot of stuff there, and there's a lot of windows and a lot of menu buttons and whatever, and I'm not too bad on the computer generally. I figure things out relatively logical, but nonetheless I find it intimidating, whereas I feel like you you find it intriguing. Is that fair?
Yeah, I do, yeah, and I think there's also, because there's a creative side to it, and you are making something, there's an end result that is a creative result. I find it fascinating that there's kind of this different process to go through to get to that end result. And actually, I mean, one of the things that really strikes you, the more of that stuff you do, you realise you can't believe a single thing you see. The stuff that you can do, some of which is way beyond my capabilities, but you realise the stuff you can do with photo and video editing software now means that you
could change someone's eye colour for the whole of the film. I mean, that's the basic.
I mean, absolutely. You can change their clothes, their eyes. You can see. You've seen deep fakes. You can have someone who's never said a word of this saying whatever you want. So yeah, it's incredible what you can do. But for our purposes, yes, I've learned more and more as we've gone along, and I would. It's not really my place to say, but I hope the results have improved as we've gone along. So I hope the quality of our poster images and our promotional images, and the quality of the video stuff that we've done has improved as well.
I think it's interesting that you talk about it as a creative thing, because obviously it completely is, and I would say that any of the film, including editing, is considered to be part of the creative industries. And certainly when we've been trying to edit the film of Gulliver, we've been realising that we're adding another layer to what we've already created. So we have this show, and that we've made it layer on layer on layer in order that then it's ready for our audience. And now we're adding another one for a slightly different audience, an audience who can watch it from wherever. And that has been interesting, hasn't it? Because I think you have to be very deft with that layer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the way that you put it, putting another layer onto it, is really, really accurate and interesting way of putting it. Because I think when you're watching a show in person, you're almost playing the part of the director in the sense of a film yourself, in terms of what you're paying attention to.
I see what you mean, yes.
You
decide as the audience member what you look at when.
Yeah, it's all there in front of you, but if there's action happening over here and you choose to focus on that, then you can. Or if you've got two characters having a conversation, you can focus on the person who's speaking, or you can look at something else. It's always up to you what you're looking at. Whereas if you're turning that into a filmed version, and you're going to be using close-ups and you're going to be using different angles and different shots, then you have to be careful that you're not imposing too much on on what the audience would want to look at. And certainly there's been a few times as we've gone through the first rough edit of Gulliver, where I've kind of made a suggestion of a bunch of shots, and you've said, well, actually I don't think we can go in close there, because I think as an audience member you feel like you're missing out, because there is other stuff happening on the stage and you want to be able to see it.
Sort of being very alert to trying to watch it, because the way we've done it is we filmed the show, as we said, I think from multiple angles. We didn't have an audience in the room deliberately so that we could put the cameras wherever we wanted and move around. So we have 3 different wide shots, don't we, from stage right, stage left and the centre. And then we also have what we call the hero shots, where the camera is following each individual actor, and then we have various pickups. Most of those are close-ups on things. So we've been using those to create the whole. Mm-hmm. And it's when you'd put together the first draft, that was one of the things I was most conscious of trying to watch it as if I'd never seen it before, and as if I didn't know it, so that I could say, hang on a minute, I want to look that way, and I physically can't because we're close up on.
And you also have to be careful of when you put those cuts in, that you're not suddenly sort of smashing to another angle. Yeah, and exactly, disturbing the rhythm, or making it feel as though the cut itself is very present. You shouldn't really be going, oh, what was that was a jump. So you want to kind of go with the flow of attention. You want to feel like, okay, if something moves over here and we can change to a shot that follows it, that moves with that, then it feels natural. It feels like that's naturally where your attention would go, and hopefully then it means that the cut is almost unnoticeable, even though it's not like it's hidden. It's a very clean cut.
Well, so I feel like we've done a very good job in that sense, actually, because there are a lot of moments where you don't. I think that's what we've also tried to do, isn't it? If you notice the cut, as you say, then it's probably in the wrong place.
Yeah, if you feel it, if you really feel like, oh, that was very noticeable, then yeah, it's probably wrong.
Because otherwise, some of it's a bit like, to me, it's a bit like a piece of music where if you've got an orchestra and the tune passes from section to section seamlessly, that's sort of what sometimes happens with the shots, is that you're sort of going seamlessly from one focus, from one direction to another, and then in a little bit and then out of it. And obviously we had limitations. I think in an ideal world you'd want to be able to have moments where the camera properly zooms in on something and then pulls back out. We didn't have the time to do very sophisticated things like that. However, I do feel like there's a lot of interesting shots that we have, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, having just watched the rough edit through the other day, I think it feels like an enjoyable way to watch the show. And it feels like a good representation of the show, which is what we wanted.
And the next stage, having kind of got a cut that we're happy with, which I think we could safely say we have now, is to put the colour and do all the colour grading, that's right, isn't it? And that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, so...
Which is a whole other...
Yeah, it's a whole other career, you know. If you could be a video editor, you could be a colourist, and that in itself is a whole other creative process. And I think it's not necessarily something you notice if you're not conscious of it. I mean, obviously we're aware of it when we watch TV or watch films, but once you start to look for it, then you really become aware of how much work goes into giving a particular shot or a particular scene a feel and an atmosphere, and how much work they do just with the colour and the shadows and the highlights, how much work goes into making it have a particular look and a particular feel. So there's a whole other sort of layer of complication to learn there. And again, I'm absolutely by no means an expert, but I've begun to learn more about it. And part of the reason for that is that theatre is actually quite difficult to film. If you've taken photos on your phone or even on a half decent camera, where you've got places of very, very bright or very, very dark, you'll know that it's often difficult to get all of the detail in that. So if you've got a very bright area, sometimes it will just be completely burnt out and you won't be able to see anything in it. Or equally, you'll have a very dark area where it's completely black. In theatre, you've obviously got, that's happening quite a lot. So
quite high contrast in lighting, haven't you?
Exactly, yeah. So you'll have a very bright scene where someone's got a white shirt and you've got white sails, or spotlights where you've got this intense area of brightness.
And we didn't do ourselves any favours in that sense, because obviously half the set is very pale colour. The Hoonhim, our horse puppets, are basically white fabric.
Yeah, and then to contrast against that, you've got the completely black background.
Yeah.
And then you'll have times when it's very dark, or when you go to blackout when it's completely dark. And for a lot of cameras, that's quite a lot to cope with. And you'll find that perhaps you might experience it yourself. You've tried to film any of a show or a concert or something. You'll notice there are parts where you just can't see any detail there. So in order to get around that, there are particular formats that you can film in. Things like log and raw. So without going into too much detail, what it means is that you've got more dynamic range. So you can keep more information in the highlights and you can keep more information in the shadows. When you then look at that footage at first, and so the stuff that we've been looking at, it actually looks quite washed out.
It looks slightly flat, doesn't it? And washed out. As if it sort of had some of the saturation drained from it.
Yeah, so you can't just then use that footage.
It doesn't look bad. I mean, you could render that out.
Yeah, it would be a very particular choice to do that, because it doesn't look normal. So you can't really use it without having treated it and done something to it to bring it back to looking more like reality, I guess. But the advantage is that you've got all the information. So where we've got those horse puppets and we've got these beautiful white horse puppets and they're against a black background, you can still see all of the detail.
Yeah, you can.
And you can see all of the detail in the fabric and you see all the detail in the background, and you're able to keep all of that.
The other nice thing about it, I suppose, is that you could, for our set and for the show, for the various lands, you could, if you wanted to, you could bring the red and the yellow out a little bit more in Lilliput, and the blues and the greens out in Brobdingnag, etc. as you go along. Yeah. You could push the balance, could you? That's right, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
For each of those lands, which I think, can imagine you might do a little bit, in a subtle way.
Yeah, well, in much the same way as you would do it with the lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you would probably accentuate what you do with the lighting. So if we've got lighting where we've used more yellows and oranges because we wanted it to have a slightly warmer feel, then yes, you might sort of push it in the colour grading as well, slightly more into that temperature.
So that's the next step, along with also fixing the audio, because as you can imagine, obviously we had two cameras, so there's a certain set of shots that the audio matches up perfectly with. But then obviously when you're switching from completely different runs, so I think we did 3 runs in total, and then we did pickups.
Yeah.
With the best will in the world, we don't do it exactly the same every time. Some bits it's surprisingly accurate, but some, you know, obviously you don't want it. That's part of the wonderful thing about live theatre is you don't want to do something the same thing
not doing
every time.
it identically. Yeah.
And I think it's probably the skill of a film and television actor to be a bit more regimented in how they do their takes. As theatre actors, we don't really do that.
Yeah.
So there is some audio syncing to fix. Yeah. But we've tried to be, I say we, really, it's mainly been you, to be judicious about where we've cut from shot to shot so that we could use audio from another take and it would.
Yeah, I mean sometimes that does dictate actually where you can or can't use a shot, because if you've said something in a so different a rhythm, or you've paused for another extra second there, then it actually makes it.
It's been movement though, funnily enough, that has caused us more problem than speech.
Yeah,
because the speech you can fix more, and you can't fix movement. So there've been times when, as in natural life, obviously you gesture differently sometime to another time.
And or if you don't get up at exactly the same.
Or
turn,
even head turns has been one of the funny ones.
Yeah. And it can be very noticeable. And actually it can feel quite jarring, because if you go to one shot and you're looking this way, and the next one,
it's where you'll start to, and we've started to spot them now, and when we're watching TV, you spot the kind of continuity errors or the slightly weird judder, like when an actor, it looks like they've kind of turned their head twice, and you're like, what happened there? But so yes, there's been interesting difficulties, but audio and colour grading are the next two steps.
Yes.
So I think, at the risk of waffling on for too long,
yeah, I mean, I
stop there.
I hope I haven't waffled too much.
No, but it's been interesting. I find it interesting, very interesting. And Nola's also very good at explaining how to do things. So if you do want to know a little bit more of how to use something like Davinci, which is a free software, I'm right, aren't I?
It is free software, yeah. I mean, that is also amazing in itself. There is a paid version, which has a couple of extra features.
But we're using the free version.
But the free version is absolutely fantastic.
So I think it's safe to say that if you would like to know a bit more how to use it, in a relatively straightforward way, as you know, Niall said he's not a professional editor, but he has learnt a lot along the way. I think it's safe to say that you probably would be happy to do a tutorial video on the basics of it, if that is of interest to anyone. We're interested to know, aren't we, about what people would like to see tutorial-wise.
Yeah.
So do let us know.
Yeah, stuff like that, and Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer. And it is more about the basics for someone like us.
As in for a beginner.
Just getting into it and just trying to find ways to use it, then I could certainly do something like that.
Point you in the right direction.
If you've already used it a bit, then I highly recommend Darren Moston's channel as well. The stuff he does on Davinci Resolve is brilliant.
Somebody's already done it then.
Well, he's a professional.
Oh, well, okay.
He does
really
all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much for watching. As always, if you are enjoying the vlogs, please do leave us a comment or subscribe to the channel. That would be lovely, and we'll see you again next time.